Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things that I hate about my E36 M3. Now I want to preface this with, I love this car. Obviously, I've had it for a year and a half and I put a bunch of money into it. Regretfully so sometimes. Anyway, but obviously, since I've owned the car for a year and a half, there are some things about it that I've discovered that I maybe don't overly like a lot. I wish I could change. So that's kind of what we're going to go into today. Now I'm going to try to make this different from a lot of other lists. In that I'm going to pick things that are maybe not mentioned all the time or unique to this car specifically. So with all that said, let's get into the video. So number 1, I'm going to go ahead and state the obvious one that everyone seems to talk about. The cup holders. Cup holders in this car kind of friggin' stink. Like honestly, you got 2 in the center here. But something specific to the sedans that is kind of nice is you actually get 6. Now, I don't know about you, but if you can count, you really only see 2 here. So I'll let you go ahead and guess for a second where you think the other 2 are. So with that little waiting game out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. So you got 2 in the center here, obviously. Then you got 2 in the glove box. Alright, which, I mean, I'm going to flash those up on screen. Those barely even count as cup holders. I would not leave anything in there, ever. Let alone the glove box might just fall out entirely, so there's also that. Let alone your drinks falling by themselves. Then, so this is kind of, this one's specific to the sedan, but the rear bench back there and the center, obviously there are cup holders, which those are actually, if you can fit a drink in there, those are pretty nice. I've used those before at fast food restaurants for small drinks. I've actually had it before because in this car, again, another thing about the cup holders, if you want your armrest down, you don't get any cup holders. So sometimes I've kind of had that pulled down and then I'll reach back for a drink. It's kind of inconvenient, but you're making the best of a crummy scenario. Honestly, I don't drink a lot of fast food drinks or anything like that, so I usually just keep bottled water in the car, so it's not a big deal. But again, it is something that's kind of annoying, and if you're going to daily drive one of these things, you'll definitely notice the lack of cup holders in this car, and it will become mildly frustrating. So to move on to number 2, I'm going to go ahead and talk about something that I really haven't heard a lot of other people talk about, and that is the noise level in these cars. This is more of an issue because they're becoming older now, but the noise level in these cars is quite high. Now a lot of that is due to worn out door seals. I mean, I have a little bit of wind noise coming from here because it's bad. I need a new one. But also, there's not a lot of sound deadening, and if it is there, it's deteriorated and not as soundproofing as it might have once been. But also, just like, when you go over bumps and things, your interior just rattles. I mean, you hear everything in this car. And like, sometimes having a conversation can be quite tough. I mean, I'm in 5th gear right now. I don't know if you can hear that, but the exhaust drone is not that great. And I just have a cat back on. I knew there was gonna be a little bit of drone when I put it on there, but you know, it's just kind of like little things like that just you don't get. I mean, hop in an E36, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They were fully capable of making this car better than it is, but they held it off till the next generation. So I guess kind of going into number 3, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the cheap interior. I will say this interior looks really nice. I really like the way it looks, especially now that I put the 3-spoke steering wheel in here. It really completed out the whole interior. The sport seats with the stripes are nice. Well, the Vaders are pretty nice too if you have an M3 coupe. The dashboard, I will say, is much nicer than E30s and E34s because those tend to crack, more so on the E30. Because I mean, mine is original dash, obviously, no cracks in it, which cannot be said for my friend's E30. But generally, just the build quality isn't as good, and you kind of hear a lot of rattles. Like my glove box is rattling, door panel's rattling. Forget about the fact that I dropped the little aerosol nozzle in the passenger door there, so it's sandwiched between the door card and the door, but that one's not really the car's fault. But I don't know, the interior, it's nice, it's comfortable to sit in, but it's definitely an old car. It feels its age. I'm sure when this car was new, it was quiet and nothing rattled, but obviously this car is not new. It's a quarter of a century old, nearly. So a lot of the kind of build quality issues in the interior start to show themselves. And it's not an issue on this car, but my buddy's car, the inserts on the door panels are starting to sag. And I mean, he's driver's door, the whole, like all the door panel clips basically here back, they're not even there. They're just broken or whatever. So his door panel kind of flops open when he's, you know, opening and closing the door. It's just little stuff like that. Side note, if you have a sedan, I've noticed that the sedan interiors are built a lot better than the coupe interiors. Why is that? I have no idea, but I've noticed that a lot of the coupe interiors are in much worse condition than sedan interiors. I think that they just made the coupes worse than the sedans. So now I'm going to move on to number 4, and that would be the cooling system. So the cooling system in these cars, obviously when you buy one, everyone's like, yeah, you got to sort the cooling system, you know, and the car will be fine. Well, I sorted my cooling system. I've still had times where my car overheats in traffic. Now, you might be wondering, is your head gasket bad? No, it's not. Here's what happened. I bought a reservoir from FCP Euro, Melee reservoir, and it was defective. I got a defective reservoir. Now, it's not unheard of for new parts to fail, but I've done some research, and it turns out they have an issue with making the coolant reservoirs in these cars. There's like a solid 25% of them that get sent out that are just bad. So you can put a new reservoir in your car and it'll leak. And it's a very slow leak too. It'll start spitting coolant and you look at it like, wow, that's a lot, but I'll go like 3 months and it'll be fine. And one day I'll be in traffic, I'll notice it overheating. I'll pull over. It doesn't actually overheat. I think air just gets into the system from enough coolant leaking out. So you see the temp needle going up, but you feel the valve cover. It's not actually overheating. Because I felt one of these cars when they're actually overheating, it's really hot. But it's just kind of annoying. Like the cooling system parts suck. They're a lot better in the E36 M3. A lot of people actually, not a lot of people, but some people have converted their cooling system to the E46 M3 style with the bleeder screw and the upper rad hose, which I thought about doing, but it's just more effort than it's worth, I think. I bought, I'm gonna lifetime warranty my reservoir. I just haven't gotten around installing the new one yet. If that one's bad too, then I'm gonna just go aluminum and forget about it. Mishimoto makes an aluminum one. It's $150, it's a lot of money, but it's kind of one of those things, like, I'll just pay it to know I don't have to care. But, yeah, that's just another thing about this car that kind of annoys me. It's just one of those little things, it's like, okay, really? And honestly, as cool as it is to have the BMW M3, or even an E36 at this point in time, it doesn't look so cool when you're on the side of the road and you have your hood open because your car was, temp gauge started going up and, you know, you don't want to warp your head, so. Good stuff. So I'm going to get into my number 5, my last thing, and that is going to be this transmission. Now, the ZF Gearbox is a good transmission. The ZF 5-speed is what's in M3s and 328s. I think wagons that are not M3s, 328s in other countries. But the ZF box is, it's good for what it's good at what it's good at. It shifts nice. It has good gear ratios that are fun to shift through. And you know, it's a zippy gearbox. But a couple of things with it. One, sometimes in traffic, you get what I like to call sticky gears. The ZF Gearbox seems to like, and it's not the only, this isn't the only car that I've driven that has this. It does not really seem to like to shift when it gets hot. Obviously, no transmission really likes to, but I think the ZF Gearbox, more so than most, doesn't really like it. Because you get these sticky gears and it won't want to go into gear, especially first gear, like from a stop. It'll really like resist you and you have to kind of force it in, and then 1 to 2 sometimes it'll get like sticky. That's when it's warm. And then obviously the detent issue. This one I'm fortunate. I think the previous owner did the detents on the gearbox because I don't have the typical 5th gear lane. And what's even worse about 5th gear lane, it's not just the lane that's an issue. You'll actually struggle to get into 3rd gear. because you'll go from second to third, and then instead of hitting third, you'll hit fifth. That doesn't really look cool when you're doing a nice fast pull. You're at 7,000 RPM in second. You go to shift, you hit fifth, and it drops down to under 3, and now you look stupid. Such is the ZF gearbox. Last thing about the ZF gearbox that I really wish I had a 6 gear. Obviously, I've talked about 6-speed swapping one of these cars before on the channel. I've done a lot of research on it, and unfortunately, there's no perfect solution. I think the best solution is probably an E36 M3 6-speed, but the problem with that is you get into that, and then you have less clutch options, and everything is more expensive, which is not fun. It's like this transmission. I bought an FX Stage 2 clutch, just Kevlar clutch and lighter flywheel, 14 pound flywheel. The whole kit was like 350 bucks. That doesn't exist on the E36 M3. Now I know some of you would be like, that's an eBay clutch. Well, actually, if you've done your research, it's the same part as a lot of the other clutches. They just take the name brand off of it and cut out the middleman. That's all it is. It's the same part. Like even the pressure plate, it's OEM Sachs. If you rub off all the coloring they have on it, powder coating, whatever. Right? But no one does that for the 6-speed manual transmissions. So if you're gonna go ahead and 6-speed swap it, you really gotta have, especially if you're gonna pay someone else, you gotta have 4 or 5 grand sitting away. Now, you can do it for less. Obviously, you're doing your labor, you're saving a ton of money. But it's kind of one of those things that just not super feasible for most people, and even for the people that it is feasible for, it's just a pain to deal with. So the ZF 5-speed, it's not that bad. Honestly, it's a good transmission. I mean, it's fun to shift through, especially this dyno short throw. Pretty fun, but it's just, obviously there's more to want, which is any car, frankly. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Just 5 things that I personally find kind of annoying. If you guys have any others that you think you know of, things that annoy you on your E36, feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear them. I got so many stories of this car. But with that said, stay tuned for more videos in the future, and keep it fresh. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention before we go. This is going to be part of the new series I'm going to try to start called the Sunday Drive. Basically, I'm just going to every week try to make some kind of video talking about a topic related to this car or telling a story. Just something that I can kind of easily do, because obviously I'm at college now and I like making these videos. So you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. It really helps me out. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.